Okay, we've started the recording, Mr. Chair, and we're ready to go.
Okay, this is the Tuesday, February 16th, 2021 meeting of the City of Palm Springs Architectural Advisory Committee. It is 5:34. David, would you please do roll call?
Yes, Member Thompson,
I'm here.
Member Walsh,
Here.
Member Payline is excused, Member McCoy,
Here.
Member Lockyer,
Here.
Member Dozy,
Here.
Vice Chair Rotman,
Here.
and Chair Jakeway.
Here.
7 members present.
A question, because one of our members is not here, I assume that Dan Thompson will be acting as a full commissioner and can discuss the things and vote.
That's correct.
Okay, may we have the staff report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Yes, Chair Jakeway and committee members, the agenda was published and posted on February 11th. Our meeting has been posted in accordance with state law.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda? Do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion to accept.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, this is a public meeting and audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that's within this committee's purview. Comments of an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time of that item is presented. So Assistant Director Newell, do we have any public comments or people waiting to make public comments?
Chair, we haven't had any requests to speak, but there are members of the public who are on the call today. So if there's anyone who wishes to speak on a matter of general public interest to the committee, you may do so now. Otherwise, each member will have the opportunity to speak during each item that's on our agenda. So if anyone wishes to speak, you may do so now. I don't see anyone, Mr. Chair, so I think we can proceed with the agenda.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any minutes to review. There is no consent calendar and no unfinished business, so we'll move straight to new business. Item number 1 is Mass Flora LLC on behalf of Flora request a minor architectural application and sign permit application to modify the exterior of the building and install new signage for a new cannabis dispensary located at 577 East Sunny Dunes Road. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes. Good evening, Chair and committee members. The applicant, Mass Flora, has submitted a minor architectural application and sign permit application for a new cannabis facility at 577 East Sunny Dunes Road, located within the CM zone. The proposed location is in a very industrial part of town, though there are some retail uses and a bakery and a bar towards the north, right across Sunny Dunes Road. The project site consists of 2 main buildings attached by 2 existing restrooms and a storage area on the left. You can kind of see on the right side of the screen the existing, the site plan as it exists via Google Earth.
Alex, your screen is not being shared.
Oh my goodness. Okay, should I start again?
There we go.
This is a site plan. Located at 577 East Sunny Dunes Road. The project site consists of 2 main buildings attached by 2 existing restrooms and a storage area on the left. You can see the screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the image on the right is a Google aerial of the site as it exists currently. You've got a building in the back, and it's connected to the building in the front by some storage on the left. There's a building, a very small building on the left. This gives you a better idea of the floor plan. The proposed cannabis dispensary will only occupy the front building, formerly known as Bones and Scones. The retail aspect is approximately 800 square feet. The office is 92 square feet and the storage facility is 123 square feet with an additional storage area and restroom located outside of the main building. The front of the building faces East Sunny Dunes Road. The applicant is proposing to repaint both the buildings in the front and the rear, a light beige color. The existing landscaping areas that are filled with sand and rock and dead vegetation currently will be replaced with a nice desert landscape. The applicant is also planning to plant 3 Palo Verde trees in the parking lot along the western property line, which will provide shade to patrons of the development. The existing mosaic panels on the west elevation of the building will be cleaned and restored. All mismatched doors, screens, and windows will be replaced, and all exterior wall-mounted AC units will be removed and replaced with original clear story glass. All the debris in the parking lot will also be cleaned as well. This is the subject building. The existing door on the far right and the window on the far left will be removed and replaced with the fixed glass to match the existing storefront, as well as all the stucco above the main orange door and the windows to the left of that. So it'll all resemble the photo on the bottom, which will be just a fixed glass throughout the entire frontage. Here's their landscape plan in more detail. You can see the proposed Palo Verde trees on the west elevation, and then the existing landscaping, which is there right now, but doesn't have any landscaping in it. They're going to fill that with new landscaping. The applicant has requested a monument sign instead of a wall sign. The proposed monument sign will be of a CMU block wall. The sign complies with the sign ordinance outlined in the Palm Springs zoning code. Staff recommends recommend approval to Planning Commission subject to the conditions outlined in the report, which is to screen the mechanical equipment on the roof with a new parapet and to repair and re-slurry the parking lot as needed. The applicant is available to answer any additional questions.
Is that your full report, Alex?
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff from the committee members? Any questions?
I have one.
Who's that, Dan?
It's Dan. Hey, Alex, I know that they're not doing anything to the back building other than replacing the doors and taking down the air conditioning units that are on the window portions, this clear story. Are there, oh, never mind. I answered my own question. I couldn't see the air conditioning units on the roof. Never mind. I get it.
I have a question.
Yes, Tom Dosey.
Is there any existing or proposed parking lot lighting?
Nothing that's been proposed. I don't believe there's any existing either. Probably have to verify that with the applicant.
Thank you.
Alex, does a number of parking spaces satisfy the new cannabis space and the other offices in the back?
So from what we know from this site, the proposed building that's going to be used as the cannabis dispensary was previously a pet store called Bones and Scones. And the building in the back was completely vacant. So there is sufficient parking. It's not like we're intensifying or they are intensifying the use. But I think when they start adding tenants in the back, it might be underparked.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, I also have a question.
Robert,
Yeah, Alex, in the rendering of the proposed renovation, the address is quite large. Are there any guidelines on the size of those that's allowable?
Are there, David?
For the address?
I'd have to look into that. I believe there are guidelines. I don't know if there's a size limitation.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions of staff?
Yes. Is there a trash area or a proposed trash area?
There is no trash area or proposed, I think, actually.
I saw loose trash cans in the photo.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to find. just what's been shown there.
Okay,
They would,
thanks.
We'll clarify that with the applicant. Any other questions of staff? Okay, is the applicant present?
I'm here, but also our architect, Jim Coffey, he's here also on the call.
Okay. Would you please give us a presentation of your project? You have 10 minutes with 2 minutes of rebuttal if desired.
Can James give it?
Sure.
I'll do the
Okay.
presentation, Marie.
Okay, thank you so much.
Afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
James Chioffi, architect. We're pleased that we're able to take a look at this building. It's always been one of my favorite little buildings. I don't know if some of you remember Howard Lapham or not, but this was his building. His offices were in this building. He designed and built the building back in the late 60s. And he was a friend of mine, and I'm pleased to be able to now say that I've actually helped renovate the building and restore it. It's not an historic. I'm sorry. Somebody says. Okay, so what you see is a restoration project for the exterior. We do in fact have a building permit to start construction on the dispensary. That permit was issued last year, and I believe it's still in force. I understand some of your questions regarding the trash enclosure. There is no trash enclosure shown. There never has been since I've known the place, but the cans are currently, although they show in the picture outside, there's a storage room in between the two bathrooms there, and that's where the cans, the rollaway cans, will be stored. So they'll be put out like other places on trash day to be picked up at the curb. We went through and decided to get rid of all these funny air conditioning units that have been added over the years. We understand there's some existing air conditioning units on the roof. The front building has an existing unit that has been there since the building was built. We're happy to work with the staff on a little enclosure around that. We think maybe a metal, horizontal metal enclosure would be best to keep the building kind of light and not too heavy. There's also, which doesn't show in the rendering, I just wanted to point this out, there's an existing jalousie window on the left side of the orange door. It's there, and we're going to try and restore it if we can. It just was part of the building architecture, and I want to try and keep it. So it's not shown in the rendering, but that would be something we might want to look into. Regarding the address numbers, there are some requirements for that. They're required to be a minimum of 8 inches high. These, of course, are a little bigger than that. They're probably 15 or 16 inches. We chose the kind of the super graphic idea there. If you want to reduce them in size, that's fine. We kind of like them like that. We thought it was, again, kind of a 60s, 70s super graphic thought. There is no current landscape or parking lot lighting. There never has been that I know of. We can certainly look into that if you'd like. But currently the answer is no. There's no landscape or parking lot lighting. The landscaping, we've completely renovated the landscaping. We'll be slurry coating the parking lot to restore it. We're going to restore Howard's little mosaic tiles. Those are original. And in fact, when I was over here working and measuring, there's a parking bumper that says Lapham on it in the back that's still there. So it's been there a long time. Howard's been dead at least 15 years that I know of. So that's it. We're choosing to paint the building the same color that it's always been, as far as I know, and we're going to choose to take the existing wood stop glazing and just repaint it white, and we're going to use an orange door for the entry.
Thank you.
And again, we do have a building permit for this. I believe this project was referred to the AAC by the city council to look at the exterior, and we're fine with that. We enjoyed working on it, cleaning it up. But I just want to remind everyone, we do have a building permit. We did get a building permit for the interior renovation. It was started out as a tenant improvement plan only.
Jim, anything else?
That's it, Tom. Thanks.
Okay.
You probably knew Howard, did you not?
Yes, I did. And just like you, I've always loved this building.
Yeah, yeah. We're happy that we're able to clean it up, and we have a client that's willing to do it. And so I think that's it's all good.
Great. David, do we have any public comments?
I would open up public comment to anyone else on the call right now, but we have not received any specific requests to speak on this item.
Excuse me, Tom, Mr. Chair. I had one other thing to add. I noticed on a condition of approval that we leave that says we are required to leave the glass transparent. And in fact, we are going to leave the glass transparent, but our approved plan shows a wall behind the glass on the dispensary building, and that's for security reasons. And the idea there would be we would build a gypsum wall board partition behind the glass to prevent people from looking in to the dispensary. And that was a request of, I think the police department wanted that too for security, so people can't break the glass and just get in. So that's in place, but I think it'll look fine. You'll see the glass and you'll see the white wall behind. I wanted to bring that up because I think we had a condition that said something about keeping the glass transparent.
And Jim, that's another conflict with the city council's current feeling on these spaces. They want to be able to see into the space. They don't want to just see a blank wall. So I know you're dealing with two different people giving you different thoughts, but maybe planning staff can help you resolve the ultimate issue of that wall.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, we show the wall on our plans and it was approved by the building department. So we'll start there, Tom.
Okay. Any questions from committee members for the applicant? Robert. Robert, we're not hearing you. Are you muted?
There we go.
There we
Sorry.
go.
Along the exterior walkways, both in the front building and along the back building, it shows some surface mounted cans. What's the plan for exterior lighting if you're not providing parking lighting?
There is some landscape. There are lights shown on the landscape plan. I don't think the landscape detail plan is here, but there are lights in the planter areas and around the trees and up the palm trees, around the palm trees.
So the cans that exist, are they staying or are you replacing them or?
The ones in the overhang.
Yes.
Robert? Yeah,
Yeah.
those stay. Yes.
They stay.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were part of the original design. We're going to restore them and get them to work again.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Jim, I have a question. In the front along Sunny Dunes, will ADA require a ramp so that you can get from those front doors to the sidewalk without using the stairs?
They did not require that, and it's not a real feasible thing. The building's only 25 feet wide, and that ramp would be, with the 5 feet of landing at both ends, would be at least 30 feet long, so it'd be longer than the building. The ramp would have to start in the driveway area. And so we are providing access from the ADA space in the back to the door, and that's all level. Technically, to get access from a public way, we would have to have access along the driveway, along the west end of the building and around the corner and into the door. That's the only way to get in and out of the building from an ADA standpoint. That ramp would also be out in the right of way. The property line is at the edge of the step there.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I want it, but I do know that on another dispensary we just reviewed on North Palm Canyon, after the fact, they had to come in and install a ramp to get from the sidewalk to the entry door of this dispensary. That's the
Sure.
one in the building where Mark used to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, if they do, they do. And we'll get a nice ramp with a railing and it'll be lovely. But I'm prepared to file a hardship if I have to.
I would support that. I think you've got such good access out of the back into the parking lot that hopefully that would satisfy it.
Yeah, and it's all level there. The other thing to remember too is this sidewalk slopes from west to east, probably slopes almost 2 feet from one end of the site to the other. You can see the number of steps and see how
Yeah.
much. It slopes. So that's another determinant that makes it really pretty infeasible to do that. And but I guess we'll jump off that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
We have to.
There's a communal mailbox shown in the existing photo, but not in the new. What do you plan to do for the mailboxes?
No need. We'll probably have a mail slot in the door. That's
Okay.
probably the easiest way to do it. And when we get around to doing the leasing for the rear of the building, we'll do the same thing. I think that's the easiest way.
Thank you.
If the post office will allow it, but I think they will.
Committee members, any other questions for the applicant?
Tom, I have a question. This is Dan.
Sure, Dan.
Hey, James, how are you?
Hi, Dan.
On the jalousie windows, are you going to take them down to the floor or down to the concrete like the other windows when you restore them?
That's the way they are now. There's a piece of plywood in front of the jalousie window now. I think somebody broke into it on the bottom, but
I gotcha.
they go full height right now, I believe.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it'd be cool if we can do it. I don't know how feasible it is. Some of that hardware you can't even buy anymore, but if it's not destroyed, we might try to restore it.
Thank you.
I had a question. Jim, is there any provision for lighting the steps or in the front there?
I guess they'll be lighted from the canopy lights, Tom, because there weren't any lights in the steps originally. It's just the steps and the planters. That's all as is. That's the way it was built. So the easy answer is not at the moment.
Okay, but it will have, the hours of operation will extend into the evening hours?
It's likely, yeah. So I assume the canopy lights will be on. We did show a railing there. There's an existing railing there as well, which I think helps, but I don't think Howard had any lights in those steps.
Maybe there's some of those LED lights that can be put in the bottom of the railing or something for safety.
We could look into that. Sure, happy to.
Okay,
would
thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Jim, I appreciate the screening of the mechanical equipment, but I hope you won't use metal decking horizontally like it's been used so many times here in town. I think you probably have some better ideas.
I do.
Good, okay. Okay, any other comments? Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. And Alex, thank you for your help with this. And hello, David. We haven't spoken in a while. Nice to see you.
Okay, committee members, discussion? It's Sean. What do you say, Sean?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if some of the committee members are lobbying for parking lot lighting, but personally, I think that a landscape uplighting, particularly well lights, something that will be a bit more secure than like spotlights. I would think that would be adequate enough. So I don't see them on the plan now, but if we could maybe dictate that some well lights be added, particularly where the Palo Verde trees are. I think Jim mentioned something about palm tree uplighting. Those tend to be located pretty far up the palm trees, maybe something down low, like maybe more well lights and some more underplanting specified on the landscape beds. I don't see any underplanting specified in those palm tree beds over by the handicap parking, at least not that I can gather from this landscape plan that I can see very clearly here. But if there was some underplanting on that landscape area where the handicap parking is, where those three I believe there are 3 palm trees, maybe existing, called out there. That might be enough parking lot lighting for me. And then maybe with that step lighting that I think you were talking about, Tom, maybe there's something that could be cut through that existing block wall planter or something in that railing like you were suggesting. That might be enough to illuminate those steps. Something like that, if that's a concern, something low voltage to illuminate those, I think would be fine. I'm not sure if the numbers were becoming an issue for anyone. I kind of like the oversized scale of what's being proposed there. I think it's creative, kind of fun for the building, something new. I think it's kind of nice dichotomy for what's kind of an older building there. Nice take on that. Other than that, I think it's kind of nice. Looks okay. It's good.
Thank you, Sean.
Welcome.
Who else has a question or comments?
I just had one question on some of the other facilities we've reviewed. It seemed that they had to separate the trash areas from, let's say, the dispensary or and the office area. I didn't know if that was the situation here, of how they're going to manage those trash cans.
I have one answer, if that's okay.
Sure, Marie.
So part of our compliance for, I don't know, I mean, I'm not the attorney, but part of our compliance for all of our stores, we have to have waste management, like that's part of our SOP. And so there's no cannabis waste that is put in the trash that would be able to be like if let's say it's a vape, there's a special hammer that we have to crush it and then blend it so that it ends up being like nothing. So there's no all the waste is handled based on that part. So, and then like in one of them, they make us have locks on our garbage, and that's fine too, whatever you guys want.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, there's a storage room area that the trash cans will be locked in, so that will keep the people away from the trash as well.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered your question, Tom, but.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if there's other uses in the back building, sharing that same area, if there's a way to separate.
Yeah, the spaces in the back are quite small. So realistically, a business going in there, I don't know what it could be, but they're very, very small. Our intention is right now just to repair the building because it's really gotten a lot of damage since this whole process. But our intention is to leave that vacant. And then, you know, if the manager needs an extra office or something, eventually we could focus on something like that.
Okay.
But we don't have any intention right now. And that's not even part of our business. We don't have any spaces that we lease. We're not a landlord.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Robert, do you have any comments?
No, I think it's a nice renovation. I think my question about the address number was not so much that I was critical of it, just that I wanted to find out if there's any restriction on it. I think we also need to bear in mind that we're approving the signage, the monument sign as well. That's kind of been glossed over. I don't have any issues with it personally. And I think the comments about adding light on the front steps is good. I think your comment, Tom, about the screening of the rooftop equipment should be something more creative than just the corrugated metal that we see everywhere. And I think it's going to be important that these surface mounted can lights in the canopies are maintained and operable, especially because there is limited lighting in the parking. I think the combination of those cans and whatever landscape lighting would be sufficient in the parking lot. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments?
I have a comment.
Dan?
As far as the numbers on it, I might be in a minority here, but I do think they look a little bit large, especially compared to the tiles on the other end of the building. And maybe if they just came down a little bit, the letters on the signage on the monument, the tallest ones are about 21 inches. So maybe if they came down from 30 inches to 21 inches, I think it may scale better for me personally, but that's my only comment. Otherwise, I think the building looks really great.
Thank you. Any more comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval with the comments that the mechanical equipment be screened. That includes the parking lot be repaired and slurried. And the other staff recommendation of the storefronts shall remain transparent.
Thank you.
Second.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Sean Locklear seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Can we add?
Go ahead,
Can we-
Rob.
Yeah, can we add to the motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And yeah, so, and that would be to add some sort of lighting on the front steps?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so that is a revised motion. Is the second still seconding?
I'll still second that.
Okay, are we ready to vote now?
Dan, anybody want to make any further adjustments?
I think I'm in the minority on the size of the signage. I'm okay with it. I just think it would look proportionally better if the numbers were slightly smaller. But I think I'm in the minority on that.
Can I
Well-
add something?
Probably are in the minority on that.
add it, Dan, see what happens.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair.
I don't want to, it looks good. I just think me personally, scale wise, it'd be better if they're just slightly smaller.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would just note that in our zoning code, the sign ordinance says that street address numbers in excess of 8 inches in height are considered a sign. So given that the size of those letters do exceed 8 inches, we would have to evaluate that under the sign ordinance as a sign.
And is that something that could be done at staff level?
Well, again, we would have to evaluate the total number of signs on the building. If it's not reduced down to 8 inches, yeah, we would have to evaluate to see if that can be a permitted sign for the site.
Well, I think 8 inches would be way too small.
Right. So with what has been presented in the name and those letters, are they within compliance of the sign regulation for the property?
It's a second sign, so unless the tenant at the back, didn't have a sign, and this is really kind of to serve that tenant space, I guess we could allow it under that proviso, so that's a possibility.
Well, they've indicated that they're not going to have tenants in the back, that this is going to be a personal use building. So I think that we could probably allow it, in my opinion.
Do you have a recommendation on the size of the sign?
Well, I'd like to see it at 21 inches in height. So that way it'd match the F and the L on the monument sign.
But it's, oh boy.
Do we actually know what size they are currently as
They're 30 inches. They're 30 inches according to the sign drawings that we have in here.
Well, they're 3 blocks wide, so that's 48 inches.
On the plans that we have, there's from Best Signs that there's a drawing of them and it shows them at 30 inches by 69 inches tall.
Right. Well, they look, in the rendering, they look larger than they do in the sign package.
Yeah, so I think if we went with the dimensions in the sign package, that would be a good middle ground.
Two and a half by,
So are you saying 30 inches? Tom?
So, David, that sign is 14.375 square feet. Would that comply with something in the signage ordinance in terms of size and?
Yeah, so basically it's 1 square foot of sign area per lineal foot of frontage. And that back tenant space certainly has more than 14 lineal feet. But it just need to keep in mind that in the event that they do occupy that back space, there wouldn't be permitted a separate sign above that storefront. This would be the location that whatever tenant goes in there could potentially change out for their main sign. Because,
Well, I'm
basically, we regulate number of signs, the location, and the size of those signs. And typically, we like to see some sort of unity amongst all signage.
Well, but David, in the future, if they decided to come back and have tenants in the back, they could do an alteration, updated sign package and remove that number and do something different, couldn't they?
That's a possibility.
David, is this technically a sign program or is this just an approval on a sign?
This is just an approval of a sign at this point.
So with multiple tenants, though, they could come back with a sign program.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So,
Yeah, and that might be another alternative is that you recommend approval of this sign permit, and that in the event that the tenant spaces at the rear are occupied, a future sign program be submitted.
Okay,
Okay.
so can I add to the motion to include what you had just said, that we'll approve it as it is at the, I guess at the 30 inches width by the 69 inches tall? And then if they have further tenants, that they'd have to resupply or resubmit for a new sign package?
Sean, you seconded the motion. Would you accept that revision to the motion?
Sure.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, it's a great job, a nice improvement to Sunny Dunes.
Thank you. Nice.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're done?
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, new business, item number 2, Coastal Business Group representing AT&T Wireless for a conditional use permit to construct a wireless communications facility on the city parking garage. The city parking garage to mimic an extension of elevator towers at a maximum height of 51 feet located at 235 South Indian Canyon Drive. May we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Let me get unmuted here. So are you able to see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, so the proposal before you today, let's see here, go to the next, is to add 2 antennas on the northeast and southwest side of the city parking garage, and then add an equipment shelter with antennas on top of that. So the slide that is before you right now is the aerial photograph of the city parking garage at the corner of South Indian Canyon and Baristo. So the red stars show the locations of the 3 proposed cell towers. So the one up here is by Fisherman's, is the northeast. The tower that is down next to the bank, which you all looked at last week, is the southwest. The equipment shelter and other antenna is also at the north end of the parking structure. And then just to highlight, the yellow star is an existing Verizon cell tower that is going to be used as the guide as to what the proposal will look like for the rest of these new additions. So in your package, you have a detailed table that talks about the different heights of what they're proposing. So in this diagram, it shows the addition on top of the existing elevator shafts, showing the different heights. So this one is looking at the northeast antenna. So the proposal is to be a maximum height of the enclosure of 51 feet. And this enclosure will be constructed out of wood and will have a faux covering that will mimic the block that is used on the elevator shafts itself. So in just going through some of these slides, the top of the garage is 25 feet. And then the top of the elevator shaft that's existing is 14'2". And then they're adding 11 feet on top of that to get the antennas on the inside of the enclosure. The second area that they're adding on is the equipment enclosure, which I'm circling right now with the cursor. And then they're adding on top of it, there's a deck here, and they're adding on top of it 8-foot tall panels that will be inside. And this will also be a maximum height of 51 feet. And I'd like to say that the zoning code only allows a maximum height of 50 feet. But as you see, when I get to my recommendation, we have a different recommendation than that. So these are the building elevations showing the towers that are proposed. Once again, on the bottom elevation, the northwest, the northeast and southwest. In the middle here is the Verizon tower. So they are keeping the heights the same as the Verizon tower. However, this Verizon tower has the luxury of being at the back of the building and not very visible from the street, where the proposed towers are very visible, and it's hard to mimic or screen the view. So the applicant has provided some photo sims showing what the elevator shaft with the antenna on top would look like. So in staff's opinion, it appears disproportionate with the rest of the building. And we've expressed this with AT&T and Coastal that the current proposal would need to be reevaluated. However, the city has received an application, and lease negotiations are underway between the applicant and the city on adding these towers to the parking garage. So the city needs to at least do a review through architectural advisory to get comments before we can move forward with the project to go to city council for the lease agreement. So I just wanted to say that. So this is the proposed elevator shaft addition on the northeast, which is next to Fisherman's. Another view looking towards Indian Canyon. And this is the southwest elevator shaft next to the entrance on Baristo. And then there's a series of slides that show what it looks like now. This is looking from the upper deck to the elevator shaft on the Indian Canyon side. And then this slide shows what the Verizon tower is constructed of. They've added a plastic substance that looks like split face block. You really can't tell that it's not block. It's actually a good way of handling that. So This is a location where this yellow hatched mark is of where the new mechanical equipment room would go, and then the elevator above the mechanical equipment would be the equipment cell tower panels. To get a sense of the height, if you look at the elevation drawings, this light pole is almost as tall as where the top structure would be, just to give you a sense of the heights. And then the back tower here is the Verizon tower. So this is the Baristo side, so it would be as tall as the Verizon tower. And then once again, this is looking at the Verizon tower, and then the new proposed at the back, the southwest. So in your package, the reason why they're coming in is that AT&T has an area that is insufficient in coverage, and they've supplied us with some propagation maps that show when they add the tower at the parking garage, it will significantly increase the coverage for their users in the city. So to make a recommendation, staff is recommending denial as presented with direction to revise the project. And that would be to lower the proposed heights. Let me go back to the simulations. To 46 feet for the two above the elevator shafts, and then allow the new equipment antenna enclosure to be 48 feet. Now, there may be other ways of AT&T finding sites to add antennas or panels. Could it be on the side of the building? That would be up to them to determine, and maybe they have some ideas when they come on in just a second. So, Chair, that concludes my report, and I am here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions of staff?
I have one. Hey,
Yeah.
do you know if their equipment, the proposed antennas that they want to put inside these 11-story build or 11-foot buildings, do they have to be 11 feet? Can the equipment be smaller, or do we need to wait to talk to the applicant about that?
Okay, so in this slide that's here before you, you'll see that there's two 6-foot high antennas, and then there's an area of probably 2.5, 3 feet between the roof of the elevator shaft and the panel. In discussing it with the applicant, this area between here is needed because of the heaviness of the cables. It's tough to, and we had discussed that, is lowering the height and bringing the panels towards the roof of the elevator. And the applicant will be able to have described that better than I can.
Okay.
I have a question. Are the tops of these new extensions, are they open to the elements, or do they have a enclosure on them?
No, they're closed. If you look at this the aerial, you'll see that well, you can't, they have a roof. They're fully enclosed.
Okay, so we don't see any, the existing portions have scuppers and drains. We don't see any additional parts for that.
You mean like downspout for rain, or?
Yes.
They would have to describe that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And Tom?
Robert,
Yeah, Glenn, do you know with the existing elevator shafts, is there a parapet and the roof is lower than that, or is the roof right at the top at the 14-foot 2?
My understanding is that there's no parapet, that the roof is the top of the shaft, that it's a hydraulic elevator.
Yeah.
Inside.
Okay.
One more question. Does the existing Verizon tower have a permanent elevator? I mean, ladder attached to the exterior?
The existing, let's see. I don't seem to, no, you access it from a door at the bottom of the shaft. I don't have a picture of it. Is that what you're asking, how to get into it? You
Right,
come
I see a proposed permanent ladder attached to the AT&T ones. Does Verizon have a permanent?
No, Verizon, you go inside.
Okay.
Let me see here. Yeah, see, there's a ladder here on this side.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question of staff.
John, yes.
Glenn, you did a good job on the math, but I still got kind of lost on some of it.
Okay.
Okay, so staff recommendation is to 46 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, if we can get it lower, most cell towers that we have approved are in that range, 45 to 48.
Okay, and what we're seeing in, for instance, the northeast tower, you've got one really good shot of it. I'm looking at 51 feet, correct?
Yes, that's what they're proposing.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
But the question is that still at 46 disproportionate to the rest of the garage?
Oh, I think we will have much to say about that.
Okay, all right.
Stand by.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Is the applicant present and would they like to come and give us a presentation? Give us your name, please. You have 10 minutes to present.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and fellow committee members. Thank you for allowing myself, Frank Ortega, on behalf of Coastal Business Group, represent AT&T on presenting this proposal for a macro facility at the city-owned property, which is a parking structure located at 295 South Indian Canyon. AT&T is eager to move this project along, as they have constantly been noticing the lack of signal that has become an issue in this general area due to having minimal cell sites in this general area. And this a well-known area that's heavily populated by your residents and visitors into Palm Springs, we feel that it would really impact the cell phone usage, data usage in this general area based off of the large anchor stores, restaurants, and facilities that you have located on each side of this proposed structure. If you take a peek at an aerial view, you see that there are well-known restaurants to the north, along with major anchor stores. And to the east, you will find that there are various apartment complexes, along with churches and additional restaurants. And not to mention, in the distance, there is the Air Museum. To the south, we have a large shopping mall with tenants such as Rite Aid, Chase Banks, various banks, and to the west, we have an area that we're really trying to focus on, and that's the Palm Springs Tennis Club. And I know that the heights are of concern, and that's simply because of the topography in this general area. We're trying to service an area that is kind of secluded around a mountainous range to the west. And the building that is across the street directly to the east is a 3-story apartment or motel building that is really the issue that is causing our line of sight, the line of sight for our antenna coverage, where it really limits the coverage that we're trying to seek beyond that building. And throughout this downtown area, there are various palm trees that line each street on every direction, and hence, trying to project our signal beyond that distance. So as the presentation pointed out, in our propagation maps, there there is really no coverage in this zone from the second page within that prop map that shows the site without our proposed location. The areas that are shown in that magenta color, they're known as dead spots where there's no coverage at all. The reliable coverage is just the building that is pretty much right next door to what we're trying to service. And then if you go down to the next slide after that, it shows that this completely covers that gap. And we are proposing reliable service with the abundance of data usage that has spiked within the last year. And this project has been ongoing for a little over a year now, and our initial submittal consisted of a 53-foot FRP extension. And upon our initial planning comments, we were asked to drop it down to 51 feet to match the existing Verizon facility that's at the same location. So we are seeking your approval to move forward with our project to match what Verizon has successfully completed at this location, and their data does show that the coverage that they were seeking has been achieved. So we are looking to do the same and mimic their previously approved architectural schematics, and with a little bit of variation based off of the areas that are left for us to use on that parking structure. And this is after vetting out various sites. This was known to be the best location that's away from residential areas and would provide the best outcome.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Committee, questions of the applicant? John, is your hand up?
Yeah, it is. Can you hear me or am I muted? The coverage is needed. The deficiency, I'm going to ask some embarrassing layperson questions, so just bear with me. The deficiency is expressed in the form of dropped phone calls in this area. Is that correct?
Drop phone calls, slow data rates, and mainly dropped calls and complaints to the carriers.
Because one of my first responses was, and this may be totally unique, or I have some better coverage or something, but I have never lost a call anywhere in that area that we're looking at. It's just kind of interesting. And can you go back to your first comment was that apparently one of the real causations of this is an apartment building across the street, or the multi-story hotel? Is it?
It's the Best Western plus
Okay.
Las Brisas.
Okay.
3-story.
All right. Huh. Okay. If you put something on that roof, I'm just asking this for general understanding purposes. If you put something on that roof, that would fix everything?
Well, the aesthetics, we would have to discuss it with our engineering team, but the nature, the style of that roof would require a larger structure to conceal our antennas because of the various slopes that are on that building. And I believe that my predecessor did approach Best Western and they were not interested.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so
Other questions from the committee?
I have one. This is Dan.
Dan?
So I asked staff earlier if the 11-foot extension that you're putting on top, how the equipment is 6 feet that's going inside of that. So he said you could explain to us why that couldn't be lowered. Why it has to be 11 feet tall.
To achieve the height that our RF engineers have deemed necessary for the coverage that they are seeking, or else we'd be pointing the antennas right to a structure where that is not RF friendly and would just reflect the signal.
because I have to agree with John is that I have AT&T and I've never dropped a call in this part of town.
Yeah, for our engineers, the data that they provided us and what we presented, that's where the concerns come from customer complaints. And if you do, I don't know if the city has a map readily available, but you'll note that there are no, to my knowledge, there are no AT&T sites in this general area.
Okay. But you said you've also explored other alternatives to sites, and this is just where it needs to be?
Correct, due to planning issues or landlords deciding to back out based off of sale of properties. This has been the best location where it's least intrusive. It's not going to disturb any of the ongoing operations of the city.
Okay, other questions?
Questions?
Was that Robert?
Yeah, so can you confirm that on the proposed towers that go on top of the elevator towers, is your facility, is it open roofed or is it enclosed?
It is open roof. It is open roof to match Verizon, and the reasoning for that is because of the heat. We needed to ventilate. We need, and especially in the desert air type of climate, we really need some ventilation through there for peak performance of the equipment.
Got it. And so for the one that sits on top of the equipment room, there is a hatch in the roof of the equipment room to access the antennas that sit above that. And then above that is open. Is that right?
Correct.
And do you know, it looks like there's some sort of brackets that these antennas are mounted on. Do you know about where they are in terms of the heights on the antennas? Are they at the bottom, middle, top? Are there multiple brackets?
Multiple. It's top, bottom, and then there's cross bracing. That's all going to be determined based off of our engineering calculations once we get to the building and safety submittal stage. But typically it does involve top and bottom for stability and for the new structural code that's governing the wind load in this area. It would require the additional bracing.
Okay. And with the equipment room, you've got a 9'6" ceiling height, and it looks like at least part of it is an open grate. Am I reading this correctly?
Typically the equipment platforms and for this type of a build is an open grate, just, to keep the airflow moving through there as well, to not enclose it.
And is there some reason you need 9'6" height in the equipment area?
For ventilation, the cubic feet, how it's measured, but also the cabinets, the cabinet heights would limit that open space, and for somebody to safely crawl in there and access the cabinets and walk around that general area.
Okay. Let me just see.
And also to mention, just so
I think that
for the installation of the equipment as well, anything lower than that would be hard to slide in the equipment during maintenance phases and the installation process of it.
But aren't you bringing the equipment in through the door, or are you craning it in from the top?
It would be a combination. It may require crane. I'd have to consult our engineers, but based off of the way that the cabinets are constructed, usually they're when they're roof mounted equipment, they do hoist them up.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Is,
John,
yeah, is there some area in the center of the building where these could be located? Do they have to be on the corner of the building?
Well, our design intent was to not reduce the number of parking stalls and in essence reinvent the project. So we're looking to keep the aesthetics as much as possible to the existing building, and just to add on to it. But yeah, that would be the least intrusive method for this parking structure, and it would be a little bit more of an engineering feat to place something right in the center, because there is an opening on the way that parking structure works, and the post tension nature of that building would make it a little more difficult to work with, and could cause potential issues with the structural capabilities of that current structure.
I have a question.
sure, Tom.
The type of equipment that's being used here, is it similar to what you might see on like a monopalm or some of the other installations? Or is there something different about this, other than the enclosure it's being placed in?
We use the same equipment for various site types. In essence, it's supposed to be the same equipment that you would find on a traditional monopole. Usually monopines or monopalms are restrictive as far as how much equipment can be placed on there because of the concealment issues. But this proposal was based off of concealing the site completely to not make the antennas noticeable and stand out.
And is it more or less than what you might find on a traditional, at each of the locations? Is it?
This current setup is the same as what you would find on a monopalm. The same
Okay,
amount
great.
of
Thank
antennas
you.
and equipment.
Any other questions from committee? I missed anybody? Okay, Mr. Ortega, thank you very much. We will discuss your submittal.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chair, I would just see if there's anyone else on the call who would like to speak on this item.
Yes, please.
If there's anyone who wants to speak, now would be your time. You can either turn your camera on or unmute your screen, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak. It doesn't look like we have anyone else, Mr. Chair.
Okay, committee members, discussion. Who wants to go first? I'll go first. I think it's the absolute wrong location for the wrong piece of equipment. To put it on a main thoroughfare right against the edge of the garage, it looks like an oil well, the way they used to cover up the oil wells in Los Angeles. I would think a better location would be over at the parking garage where the Regal Cinema is, on top of the convention center. There's got to be a number of spaces in town where these large elements could be built and not just be right in everybody's face. I think the Verizon tower that exists, because it's in the center of the project and all the way to the east side, you hardly ever see it from the street or from outside the project. But with these being right on Indian Canyon and Baristo, there's no way you can miss them. And they just seem so out of proportion for the rest of the building. I don't think I can support this project. Other comments? John Walsh, you promised us some comments.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sort of struck that it seems like a lot of sins are sort of committed in the well-intentioned intent to mask some of this technical stuff. And, I've kind of said my rant about the fake palm trees and whatnot. And, if they're going to do it, there are some examples few, but they're out there, of like a really attractive radio tower. I mean, San Francisco, what, they built Sutro Tower in the early 70s, and it's a landmark. You know, arguably, in terms of its aesthetics, whether or not it's successful, but it's just kind of there, and it's not disguising what it does. So that's number one. Yes, wrong building, wrong place, A to Z on this. And then the last thing I would kind of comment on, and I am sorry, I'm probably on thin ice here, but there is I think what we are experiencing is an attempt for the technical delivery to keep up with the marketing. And I go back to, I'm sorry, I've never lost a phone call anywhere in that area. And it just seems like much of this is driven by movie streaming and issues that are kind of a much more intensive use, as opposed to the real kind of deliverable that is very important with respect to cell phones. So I would not support this, certainly in this condition and in that building and the way this is executed. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Sean.
So, yeah, I tend to agree with you folks that I think that it certainly looks out of scale with the height of the towers that are being proposed. And I do wonder if there's some investigation that could be done where these things could be located perhaps more internally with the parking structure, if they really wanted to pursue having these towers or these structures be located within this particular parking structure. I'm not sure that I'm buying the need for them to be here, or the argument that one of the culprits is the 3-story building across the street, because the majority of what's across the street is a vacant lot. It's not till the very northeast corner of the building where the 3-story hotel across the street begins to occur. As I look at now that we're on the Zoom and we all have the benefit of looking at Google Earth while we're on this call here, it's kind of easy to peruse. So anyway, the argument, I'm not sure about the losing calls or not losing calls, or the data they've been able to perfect or perform on that. I mean, I feel like it's bringing my car to the shop, and sometimes it's going to make the funny sound, sometimes it's not. I don't know about that. It's up to them. I don't know, but it certainly seems out of scale. It certainly seems like something I wouldn't support. Doesn't sound like staff is in support of the project. I doubt any of our colleagues here are, so I don't know, back to the drawing board for this one. That's all.
Thank you, Sean. Any other, Tom Dosey?
Yeah, I think, when you look at the design of the parking structure, every effort was put into the design to give it a lower profile and a more horizontal proportion. And then with these being added to it, I just don't see how it proportionally or scale-wise works with existing architecture.
Thank you. Robert, do you have any comments?
No, I think it's not an appropriate project. I think the scale is, the proportions are off and horrible. And I was trying to figure out if there was a way, in my line of questioning, I was trying to figure out if there was a way to reduce at least the height of their screening and maybe have the tops of the antennas project up, and maybe that would be a little bit more acceptable look, but I don't even think that's possible. No, it's just it's too tall. The elements are way out of proportion for the building, so I can't be in support of it.
Thank you. John McCoy, any comments?
I concur with what has been said. I think the proportions are poor. There was definitely effort made in the initial design of the garage to keep it within scale of downtown, and this does not do that.
Okay, thank you. Finally, Dan, anything?
I don't think I need to beat a dead horse, but I'm
Okay,
not in support.
do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Yes, Dan.
I'll make a motion to decline.
I'll second.
Second by John McCoy. All in favor of declining this project?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to item number 3. Does the
Aye.
committee need to take a little break before we start that?
I was just about to ask for 5, although I want to recuse on the next one.
Right.
So is it still okay to ask for 5 and recuse?
We'll let you do the recuse. We'll see if anybody else needs 5.
Okay, yeah.
Do we want to do a 5 or get right into it? Okay, let's get into it.
Okay.
Number 3 on the agenda, Studio A&D Architects on behalf of Edward F. Freeman of Pinnacle View LLC for a major architectural application to construct a 4,276 square foot single-family residence on a 20,705 square foot hillside parcel located at 2610 Winter Sun Drive, Zone ESA-SP, Planning Area 4, and that's in the Desert Palisades specific plan. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, good evening. As introduced, the project you are about to review tonight is a proposed new single-family residence. The project site is located within the Desert Palisades specific plan area. The project site, as shown on the screen, is indicated with this orange color, and that's the site, which is located in the southwest portion of the specific plan area. The hillside, the project site is a hillside, and its topography slopes down from its southwest corner towards the northeast corner of the lot. And these are the photographic images that applicants submitted, which were taken from the project site. As introduced, it's a new single-family residence in the Desert Palisades specific plan area. The size of the residence is going to be 4,276 square feet, and the lot size is 20,705 square feet. The proposed residence is a single story with the maximum building height of 22.2 feet. Because the site is located within the specific plan area, this project was reviewed in accordance with the specific plan development standards, as well as architectural and landscape design guidelines, in addition to the city's other zoning ordinance regulations, such as hillside developments, architectural review, and environmentally sensitive area specific plan zone regulations. This is a proposed site plan. As shown on this plan, the site is accessible from the driveway, which is going to be located on the Winter Sun Drive, which extends along the west property line towards the rear. The building is L-shaped in orientation, and the proposed residence is going to accommodate a detached pool cabana, as well as an infinity edge pool. And this is a floor plan. From its entrance facing the west side yard, the residence extends to the living space, a kitchen, dining, and the bedrooms are located at its east, west, and north ends. And again, it's an L-shaped property. The garage is located on the west side facing the side yard, and there's a freestanding pool cabana. And these are the elevations of the proposed residence. The applicant provided the red line, as you see. This is an 18-foot line to show what's the maximum allowable building height is for this particular property. As you see on the top elevation, the part of the building will project slightly above the maximum allowable building envelope. And these are other elevations, west and the south. Again, the part of the structure projects above the 18-foot allowable building envelope. The proposed project includes a new landscape, and the proposed plant palette includes acacia, Mexican, and Texas ebony, palms, cacti. The project proposes dispersed plant placement to retain the natural appearance of the site, and the plant palette also includes water efficient landscape planting materials. However, a majority of the materials that are proposed for this project are not native plant materials that are listed in the specific plant guidelines. And this is a primary elevation of the residence, which faces north. As you can see here, the proposed design exhibits a rectangular geometry with very strong horizontal massing. And the project proposes a mix of vertical and horizontal elements to create an interesting natural rhythm within the building to differentiate the volumes. And as you see here, the applicant is proposing to use unique materials to accentuate the building elevations. And these are the views of the outdoor area. The project proposes a wooden deck which extends from the primary residence to the detached pool cabana. And they're proposing to utilize black onyx coping tiles for the pool. And as you see, they're proposing to use wooden, the wood as a sealing material for a material consistency and for accentuation of the building. And these are the images of the rear of the property, the garage elevation, as well as the view that's taken from the side. It's actually east side, and the roof overhang, just to show what they're proposing to do. As you see in the staff report, the applicant provided a material board, and they're proposing to utilize different types of materials for this project. The proposed materials include a natural stone, smooth stucco, walnut veneer, board formed concrete, and Corten steel. And excuse me, it says, and these are the materials that they're proposing to utilize. So the proposed project is generally conform to the design guidelines, development standards, and the architectural hillside ordinance regulations of the zoning code. But there are some issues that I'd like to present. As I mentioned earlier, a part of the building wall, particularly a natural stone wall, which is going to be the accent for this residence, is going to project above the maximum allowable building height envelope. And this is just to show the details of the projection. And the portion of the building is actually going to project into the required setback. And the image on the right side shows where exactly that is. And the image on the left shows how much of a projection the applicant is proposing for this project. And the proposed pool cabana, its area exceeds 150 square feet, and this is a limit that's stipulated in the specific plan. And other minor issues, just the location of the pool area enclosure is not depicted on the site plan. A floodlight is proposed on the exterior elevation, which is prohibited by the specific guidelines. And then the submitted material, the plan did not provide details of apartmentable joints, which is specified in the design guidelines and the landscape mitigation plan. And plant palette consists of a large amount of non-native plant materials. Since the staff report was issued and posted last week, the applicant has submitted a administrative minor modification to address the building height issue, which is shown here. And applicant has also is decided to remove floodlight from the proposed lighting for the exterior of the building. And based on these findings, staff recommends that the AAC recommend approval to the Planning Commission, subject to the conditions of approval included in the staff report. This concludes the staff presentation, and the applicant is available if you have any questions. And this concludes the staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriko. Questions from the committee for staff?
Hey, Noriko, can you go back to that slide that you said that they had addressed the issue of the height of the wall? You went so fast, I didn't see what had changed.
Oh, sorry. So the applicant is proposing the building wall, which exceeds the maximum height. According to the zoning code for hillside property, slight modifications to the maximum permitted building height is possible by what's called an administrative minor modification.
Right.
This application is approved, the maximum allowable height will be 30 feet. So what I mentioned earlier is that since this staff report has been issued, the applicant submitted administrative minor modification application to address the building height issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions of staff? Noriko, the limitation of 150 square feet for the pool cabana, is that something that's in the city regulations, or is that something that's in the plan district or the HOA regulations?
This language is actually noted in the development standards as well as design guideline of the Desert Palisades specific plan. So you do not find this requirement in the general zoning code section, but it's coming from the specific plan.
And is there a method to approve a larger footprint for the cabana?
Based on my research, no. Sorry. No, not to increase the area or anything.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff?
I have a
Tom?
comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Tom Dosey first.
Does this go through the development's HOA review?
Yes, that is
as well?
according to the applicant, the project has been reviewed by the HOA and it has been approved. The applicant is here with us tonight, and he can provide more detailed information.
Okay, thank you.
Robert, did I hear you wanting to have a question?
Yeah, I do. So Noriko, when they calculate the size of the cabana, though, it's the roof area, right? It's not the floor area.
Correct.
It's the covered area.
Correct.
Okay. So, all right. And then the other question I have for you, the area where the encroachment of the mechanical room, mechanical space goes into, beyond the property line, that is just open space. There's not another single family property right there. There's some sort of easement. I know that there's a sort of a 1-lane road that goes up along one side, but then there's an open space easement or something behind that. Is that right?
So yes, this particular lot backs up onto an open space, and the area where the part of the building project, that's actually facing a trail. So it's not really facing another property or anything in the area. And I think the easement that you are referring to is actually on the opposite side in the west side yard area.
Yeah, so there's, as we're looking at this image, on the left side of the screen, there is a trail of some
Correct.
sort. And then the property goes off in an angle. And if I'm looking at the parcel map, it's quite a wide area that does that there is no property there. It's just open space.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I have one final question. Is a pool enclosure not required here, or we just don't have the information on one?
The staff just does not have the information. But the pool does require some kind of enclosure for safety.
All right, thank you.
Chairman,
Is that John Walsh?
yes. Noriko, it sounds like an AMM is a part of the package to address both the height issue at the master chimney as well as the encroachment of that side yard. Is that correct?
And to specify the administrative minor modification can be applied only to address the building height issue. And again, this property is in a specific plan area, and under the administrative minor modification stipulation, the front yard setback and the building height can be modified via administrative minor modification application.
Huh. Okay, thank you. That's news to me.
Noriko, could they go to a more intense situation where instead of asking for an administrative modification, they actually ask for a variance on the setback?
If the applicant decides to take that direction, yes, he has the option. However, in order for staff to recommend approval of variance and also the planning commission to approve a variance application, specific findings need to be met, such as the lot shape, lot size. Based on what I see so far, in terms of the size and dimensions, these are considered a standard, meaning it conforms to the specific plan development standards. So that itself, I guess, or I should say, probably makes it more challenging for staff to recommend the variance if the applicant were to submit the application to the city.
Okay. Other questions of staff?
I have one additional question.
Sure, Tom.
Noriko, is there anything in the specific plan in regards to site or landscape lighting, maximums or minimums?
The specific plan does include the design guidelines and development standards for landscape lighting. However, the language does not limit or it does not provide any information or regulations pertaining to the quantity of lighting fixtures.
But it refers to a level of light or a desired effect?
Let me see. So to answer your question, design guidelines says exterior lighting, use spangly, describe how light pollution control is achieved, how light spillage onto adjacent site is avoided, low intensity light sources, landscape accent lighting to be properly shielded and buffeted. So that's the language about the landscape lighting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, would the applicant like to give us a presentation? Give us your name, please, and you have 10 minutes.
Hi, I'm Jordan from Studio R&D Architects. Thanks, Noriko, for presenting the project. Yeah, so we'd like to explain to you what the initial concept for this project was. Due to the nature of the site with so many beautiful views and undulating topography, the initial concept was to have multiple nodes and pods of the house spread across the site with glass bridges connecting the spaces. And as the concept evolved, these nodes ended up getting closer to each other, but we still have defined wings through the site. One of which became the Gabbana, and this stone blade wall connects and ties the structure through the site. So that was the initial concept. There are a few key defining features as well. The biggest one we would consider is the natural stone blade wall that runs from the north to the south of the project. It runs through the house. It serves multiple functions, such as we have built-in vanities in this wall. We've got a water feature at the front entry penetrating this wall. It also is a header that goes above the pool and kind of creates an interior space of this yard without framing the view, and also providing a little bit of shelter and shade for the Gabbana. It also functions as a chimney at the Gabbana for an outdoor fireplace. So the material palette, we went for very natural looking materials. If you could show that, Noriko, on the screen, the material board. Our palette is quite soft. The stone we've chosen mimics the tones that are in the natural boulders. We've gone for a sand finish concrete on all the flat work and exposed aggregate on the driveway that has a warm tone to it. And then we've gone for like dark bronze metal features, such for the fascias and the eaves and the glazing. And yeah, so those are the materials. The Gabbana, that is what we're considering an open trellis. It doesn't have a solid roof. We're planning on having olive branches between the metal wide flange beams that are surrounding the Gabbana, and this provides some shade without actually it being a very heavy solid structure. And that has been approved by the HOA. So yeah, at the Gabbana, again, that blade wall there, where we're exceeding the maximum building height, that's a chimney. I don't know, Noriko, if you could show that, this view here. Due to the nature of the site with the topography, it was really hard to get this blade wall to conform to the underneath the 18-foot high maximum allowable envelope throughout the whole site, because the topography in this corner of the site drops about 7 feet. So it was hard for us to make this part of the wall conform, and that is why we've added this diagram showing what part of the wall is penetrating this. Again, that corner there is purely an architectural projection and a chimney. So yeah. Moving on to the architectural projection at the master bedroom. This area here, we consider it like a bookend to the structure. It defines and grounds the master bedroom, and it provides shade from the western sun to the master bedroom, and it also provides a little bit of privacy from pedestrians on the hiking trail that are walking down. It blocks their view into the master bedroom a little bit, and we just think it ties the structure together. There is no HVAC equipment within that space. It's all located within our setback, and it's purely an architectural element. So yeah. that's about it. The pool is probably one of the other big design elements of this. It runs east-west through the yard, and it also, as well as the blade wall, if you could show the interior renderings of the yard. Yeah, these ones here. So here you can see that we've got a north-south blade wall and an east-west pool and water feature. What this does is it kind of creates outdoor rooms within our landscape, and we've got sections of landscaping within, breaking up these nodes. We've got parts of flat work that are under eave for outdoor living spaces. We've got a water feature that separates the living room and the master bedroom, and what it does is, without actually building any walls, it creates different spaces, and it still keeps the landscape quite open. Yeah, that's about it from me.
Okay, Jordan, thank you. I'm sure we'll have some questions for you, so hang on. Is
No
there
worries.
anybody from the public who is here to comment? Mr. Newell?
I haven't had any requests, but we certainly can open it up to anyone else who wishes to speak. Doesn't look like we-
Hearing none, I think we can move ahead with committee discussion, or not, excuse me, discussion, committee questions for the applicant.
I have a question.
Sure, Tom Dosey.
On the site plan, it shows a proposed trash enclosure out towards the street. And my question is, what is the material of the wall that surrounds the trash enclosure?
Yeah, to give a bit of background, we initially designed that towards the end of the driveway, and it was not within 50 feet of the street. So we came up with this location here because it kind of acts as a front feature. It's smooth stucco to match the house, and it has Corten steel gates on the inside facing the property.
And does it show in any of the renderings, or is it just off to the side, I guess would be on the cover rendering?
It has not been added to our renders yet.
Okay. And then I guess the only other question is, are you prohibited from landscaping in that 8-foot area from the edge of paved road to your property line?
Yes, we can't even add a boulder within that space.
And that's kind of that gravel fringe area, I recall.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Who else?
I have a question.
Was that Tom? No.
It's
Tom.
Dan.
Dan.
Hi, Jordan. What about a pool enclosure? Have you guys designed anything for that? If that's required?
We haven't designed anything for it yet, but what we're planning on doing is using as many natural boulders as we can surrounding the pool, and then we will build structures between them, blocking and creating.
Okay, thank you.
Jordan, I have a couple questions. When I look at the floor plan, inside of the house, I see a two-foot floor level change from the dining room to the living room, but I don't see that floor level change reflected at all in the patios. Am I missing it?
No, so that's good pickup. So the way the topography works is the northwest of the site, which is the corner that has the kitchen and the garage, that portion of the site is substantially higher than the southwest and the south, all of the east and the south. So what we've done is we've stepped the living room down 2 feet and also the master bedroom wing, and all of the outdoor spaces are that 2 feet below. Or they're also on that same level as the living. So the dining room, kitchen, and the garage are above the yard space, if that makes sense.
So the multi-slide glass door that's on the side of the living room and dining room, it looks like it's continuous. So is it down at the living room level and there's like a curb in the dining room?
Yes, that's correct. There's a 6-inch curb there that we're using as a pocket that we're going to have shades in there. And, when it's all open, which there's a fixed panel on the end, so there'll only be one panel that is open that you'll see this curb and the side of the steps, which we've designed and detailed as a feature.
Okay, and then at the bottom of the drawing here at bath number 2, in that courtyard between the bath and the street, it looks like there's some operable louvered doors, and I couldn't see on the elevations that it called out what the material is. And I'm also wondering, how do those louvers operate?
Yeah, those are going to be a woven corten steel louver, which are in the renderings. If Norika, you could show those. So they're a woven steel mesh that is going to be a rusted patina finish, and they're going to be operable from inside the house, so that the client can tilt those based on sun and privacy.
Okay. And then up on the roof, you have a big mechanical chase that goes from the mechanical room at the garage across the garage and then down the length of the house. Can you describe what that is built from? Are the sides of it plaster? I know your roof is a membrane. Is a membrane on top of that little mechanical chase? How does that work?
Just as a quick backstory, we have been preparing for a building submittal on this. So we were just going through our Title 24, and we've actually reduced that doghouse HVAC component over the garage. So we only have a small section of it now, and it will be covered in that single ply roof membrane on all sides.
So if I'm seeing that from off the property, I'm seeing the membrane roofing on the vertical surface.
Yeah. Which is a light tan color.
Okay, and then regarding the cabana, I don't know if you might have an argument about the size of it by saying it's not detached from the rest of the house because it's attached to your blade wall, and so it's part of the overall structure of the house. Just a comment there.
Argument. Yeah.
Okay, other committee members, questions for the applicant?
I have just a quick so outside the master mechanical room, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, outside the master bedroom where the mechanical room, or it's not really a room now, extends into the side yard. It looks like from your drawings, there's that elevation. So it's to the left of the master bedroom between what you're, let me just see what drawing. It looks like it's drawn in wood. If you look at your, trying to see which is the enlarged plan, it looks like it's got a material of wood on it. What is that? Is that a bench or?
Yes, it's a 1'6" high wooden bench that is kind of a curve as well. It also, the goal of that is also because the trail is about 12 feet below this. it's to provide a little bit of privacy to clients that might be in bed, looking up from that trail. They won't see the bed and the furniture if their curtains are open. So it's a dual purpose.
Robert, anything else?
Okay. No, no.
Okay, thank you. Dan, did you have any comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, John Walsh?
I think I'm all right, but maybe I need refreshment. As I look at the staff recommendations, the 8 of them, what has dropped out? Number 1, the height, perhaps?
Right.
Okay, and that's it. Is that right? So all the other staff recommendations, 2 through 8, still stand?
Yes.
Okay, so out of those, number 2 and number 3 really pertain to the building envelope. And the rest are, pretty much kind of detail issues to be worked out. Okay, that's fine. I just needed to understand that.
Okay, thank you. No more questions for the applicant? Jordan, thank you.
Did they also drop off number 5?
No.
Robert,
Excuse me, didn't they also drop off number 5? Yeah, didn't they also drop off number 5, which is the floodlight?
Yes.
They've already done that, yeah.
Okay.
While we're
Yeah,
looking
thank
at
you.
the list, number 8, do you have any, you've been presented with this, do you have any thoughts on how you're going to address number 8, increasing the native plants in the palette or reducing the number of non-native?
Yeah, so what we've done with the landscape is we used mostly native plants around the public right of way, and we did use some more ornamental plants in the private spaces, those of which we can supplement with natural, the native plants to comply.
Okay, yeah, I do see acacia on a boundary with open space, which may not be a great location for that. So, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? Jordan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see what our committee discussion wants to focus on.
I'll start with something.
Sure.
I have a concern about the quantity of landscape lights. I guess we could put it back. I mean, if their HOA committee approved, the plant palette and the lights, then maybe it's not a concern, but I think there's a total of 79 lights in the landscape areas, and I was just wondering if there's some concern about trying to keep these hillside areas not as brightly lit as we may see down on the valley floor area.
I'll concur with your thought, Tom.
John Walsh, any comments, or you've already given us? Oh, you have it. John Walsh, do you have something? John Walsh, any comments? Oh, you're muted. We can't hear
Okay,
you.
no, I do not.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Chairman.
Robert,
No, nothing really to add.
okay. I'll just say that I think it's a great project, and I really think the height issue is easily approved. I think Jordan's comment that really it's a chimney and chimneys are allowed above height limits, but also on a hillside lot, part of the reason we're here is that they do have quirks and things where they need little variances like this. I would also like to hope, I mean, I can totally appreciate the overhang at the master bedroom and the way it wraps from the front of the bedroom to the back. And that area that intrudes into the setback is totally unusable space. It's just an architectural element. In many cities that I work in, architectural elements that don't add usable space to the building can be built into the setback. So I hope the team can be creative and think of some ways that maybe that can be approved, because that's a pretty strong element of the project. And as I think it was Robert pointed out, it just abuts open space. So it's not, and because there's no property line wall, nobody will ever know how close that is to the property line. So I hope maybe these comments can help the staff justify approving that. And other than that, I'm in support of this project. Materials are beautiful, detailing is nice, interesting massing. Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
And as much as we can to approve the height of the chimney wall element, the encroachment on the side yard base. Also, I think the argument of the pool cabana is actually attached to the structure and it's an open roof. I think that's okay at exceeding the changes in the material, in the landscape material. Basically, the other items that staff pointed out, I would be in agreement with. So.
We have a second?
I'll second,
I
Mr.
think
Chairman.
there's supposed to be a second.
Robert, you're kind of breaking up.
I will second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, John Walsh.
Oh,
Was there any?
Could we,
Tom Dosey.
could we add a comment that the landscape lighting be reviewed to reduce the number of fixtures?
Yes, and it looks like,
I will accept that as an amendment.
okay. And John, will you second that acceptance?
Likewise.
Okay. I think we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Great project, guys. Okay. Number 4. Mike Flannery for a sign program application for Flannery Exchange, a multi-tenant commercial building located at 750 North Palm Canyon Drive, Zone C1, Section 10. Could we have a staff report, please?
Yes. This is a sign program application that's proposed for a multi-frontage property, which extends from North Palm Canyon to Indian Canyon Drive in Uptown area. And this image shows the facade of the building facing North Palm Canyon Drive. The subject building is a 2-story multi-tenant building which accommodates different types of uses. The building is going to accommodate co-working office spaces, retail spaces, and a cafe on the first level. And on the second floor, there will be the office spaces, common space, as well as a rooftop balcony. And just to show the interior component of the building here. The building is contemporary in design. The character defining features of the building is a stainless steel rating system on the second level, as well as the dark window and door frames, decorative block walls, and the canopy element on Canyon Drive. And these are the additional images of the building that's taken from the North Palm Canyon, and then also includes an image that's taken from the Indian Canyon Drive side of the street. The applicant is proposing to install 13 signs as a part of this application. And this is just to show the location of the proposed signage. The proposed signs include the freestanding signs, wall signs, and the blade signs. And I'm gonna go over the details a little bit. For North Palm Canyon side of freestanding signs, applicant has submitted two design options. One includes a building name and the other one includes tenant names only. The construction of the proposed freestanding sign includes black painted aluminum tubing and aluminum aluminum panels, which are going to be finished in a corten steel appearance. And the lettering for the individual tenant will be vinyl. The thickness of the sign is approximately 5.5 inches. And the height of the freestanding sign will vary depending on which design option the city approves. It's going to be either 84 inches or 92 inches. And for the North Palm Canyon Drive frontage, there are 4 wall signs being proposed. And this is just to show where the sign installation location will be. And for the south elevation of the building, which faces a courtyard, the applicant is proposing a blade signs. There will be 4 blade signs. The construction will include painted aluminum bracket, which is going to be attached to the aluminum sign backing, which is going to be painted to mimic a corten steel, and acrylic sign panel is going to be affixed to the metal backing, and the tenant name will be vinyl lettering. And this is just to show the installation location of the blade signs. For the North Indian Canyon Drive frontage, the applicant is proposing an additional freestanding sign, which is going to accommodate the tenant names. And for building elevations, there are 3 wall signs proposed. And these are the installation locations of the proposed signs. Based on what's submitted and the observation that the staff made, this application proposes the installation of 13 signs, and the amount of signage that's being proposed exceeds the quantity of signage that's found on other similar multi-tenant properties in the Upton area on North Palm Canyon Drive. And also the proposal includes a freestanding sign, which does not really display the building name. Based on the language in the zoning code, freestanding signs are intended to primarily intended to display building names, and the tenant name is rather secondary. So there's a question of whether this application meets the intent of the zoning code or not. And then also based on the site plan that's included in the program, the freestandings will project into the right of way. And staff also finds that one of the proposed wall signs on the North Palm Canyon elevation appears architecturally incompatible. And the sign program also includes signage that are not really consistent with the intent of the zoning code. So to address these issues, the staff is recommending one of the following actions to be taken. One option is to remove the tenant names from the proposed freestanding signs to identify the building name only and install wall signs which identify the tenant names and allow the blade signs as proposed. Or the free signs to be modified to identify the building name and the tenant names with the maximum allowable area as permitted by the zoning code. However, omit the proposed wall signs on both building elevations from the program and allow the blade sign. This will, the intent of this particular recommended condition is to address the signage quantity issue. And then also the staff is recommending the freestanding signs to be fully located on the property or the applicant obtain an encroachment agreement with the city so that the signs can be legally located at the location that's being proposed. And then also staff finds that the sign 3.1, which is the proposed sign on the canopy structure facing North Palm Canyon to be eliminated from the sign program because the element isn't a character defining feature, and the staff finds that by installing a signage on its fascia, it will actually weaken the overall design of the building. And then finally, staff recommends a few signs that are included, which size does not fully conform to the zoning regulation to be reduced so that they will be in conformance with the zoning regulations. The applicant is, excuse me, sorry. So based on the staff analysis, staff recommends that the AAC recommend approval to the Planning Commission subject to the recommended conditions of approval included in the staff report. And this concludes the staff presentation, and applicant is available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriko. Does the committee have any questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Yes, John.
Noriko, if all of the conditions were abided by in terms of design changes, reduction of sign number, sign sizes, it would be in full compliance with the sign ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have a question for staff?
Chair, yeah, I have a question. Noriko, on the monument signs on both Palm Canyon and Indian that are being proposed, you say that they project into the public right of way. So what is, in the commercial district, what is that setback? Because based on their diagram, it shows that it's behind, well, it's behind the property line. So on commercial properties, is it, you're not allowed to have signs on the property line?
Well, this property is very unique. It's very difficult to see, but this property includes what's called a Lot A and Lot B. It's a strip of land. It's only 5 feet in the width, but it's located on both the Palm Canyon Drive and Indian Canyon Drive. So if you look at this diagram, sorry, let me just enlarge it. The sign 1.1 you see on the North Palm Canyon Drive frontage, that is actually the area that's been dedicated to the city. So even though it's behind the decorative block wall, the area actually belongs to the city, at least a portion of it.
Okay.
And, for the Indian Canyon Drive frontage, as you see, the sign slightly projects into the public right of way as well. And I understand that, you know, sometimes it's very difficult to prepare a very precise drawing when there are, you know, dedications and just a lot of elements. And the applicant can clarify where it's exactly going. But based on what's shown here on the site plan, both signs project into the public right of way.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions of staff? Okay. Oh,
I'm sorry, I missed one question.
yes, sure.
In your analysis, you, on 3.1, sign 3.1,
Yes.
which is a building ID sign, and that is the one that's on, hold on, sorry. That's the one over the entrance on Palm Canyon. In your remarks, you say the intent to identify the building name, and that does not conform. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, so according to the zoning code, each business is allowed to have a main signs on the facade. In this case, what they are trying to display is the name of the building, not the business. So that's the reason why staff mentioned that it's inconsistent with the intent.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, is the applicant here? And could you give us your name? And you have 10 minutes to make a presentation.
This is John Cross, Best Signs. And yeah, thank you, Noriko, for running down the proposed sign program. You know, we've been here many times talking about sign programs, and it's always challenging putting something in place that, you know, not for today, but for 20 years from now. And especially when, you know, it's a mixed use. Don't know if there's going to be 2 businesses upstairs or 3 businesses or 5. But the goal from the owner was to, you know, have a clean looking design, something contemporary, modern that matched the building. And as far as the design aspect, you know, that basically comes into place with the freestanding signs and the blade signs, which are fixed, whereas the individual tenant signs will be on a case-by-case basis. I'd just like to touch on the placement of the freestanding signs. You know, I got the plan from City of Palm Springs Engineering, and I measured, you know, the 50 feet myself. And so what's shown in the photos is accurate as far as placement. It's a little, I can see where it'd be a little confusing on the site map. It looks like our arrow is kind of pointing in between that 5-foot area that Noriko was talking about. But if there is an issue with it being in the right of way, you know, would definitely, you know, take whatever steps for encroachment or move it in if we can. But I think the visual photo, you know, showing the freestanding signs is accurate to the property line. And there's 2 designs there. Reason for that is there was a 20 square foot max area, and we did we showed it with just the tenant panels at the 20 square feet, and it gives you a 9-inch panel. We would like to include, you know, the name of the business or the name of the center, because I think it's important. You know, it's going to be how, you know, someone says, hey, you know, my business is over at Flannery Exchange. So I think it's important to get that on there. And the freestanding signs themselves are really, aside from the blade signs, the only allowance for signage that those first floor retail tenant businesses will have. So, I mean, we could take the Flannery option that has the, you know, has the logo at the top and reduce it, you know, an additional 3 square feet, but you're really making those panels smaller and smaller. And it may not be an issue on the Palm Canyon side where you know, you might have slower traffic or people walking by. On the Indian side, however, I think it's important. I mean, once you get smaller than that, 9-inch threshold, I don't know if it serves a purpose. I don't know if too many people will see it. So other than that, I mean, as far as the incompatibility of 3.1, I'm definitely not opposed to removing that sign type, especially if we can keep, the Flannery Exchange logo on the directory. It may be difficult to tell, but that's, that sits right underneath that beam. So if we could get Flannery Exchange logo on the freestanding sign, I think it would be, overkill to have the sign above it with the logo. So we're okay with removing that. And yeah, other than that, there's just open to any questions or comments you guys have.
Thank you, John. Okay, committee, do we have questions of the applicant?
I have one.
Dan?
Hey, John, on the plans on sheet 1 from Best Buy or Best Signs, the sign 2.2, is that not curved to the building? Is that actually a square shaped sign?
No, it is on the curve. You can see there, yeah, it's up 2.2. So the sign would follow the curve. It wouldn't be a panel, it'd be individual letters, so it would follow the curve of the building.
Thank you.
John Walsh. Oh, John, you're muted. John, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry,
There
thank
we
you.
Thank you.
Okay, the tenant sign and then the tenant name of building sign where we had the lady walking her beagle side by side. Can we go back there? Okay. If I understand this correctly, there's a choice that you're given. You can't have both the building identified as well as the individual tenants, right?
Well, my understanding, and Noriko can correct me, is that the staff would prefer to have the logo on there and does not want just a freestanding sign with just tenant panels, which I would
Correct.
agree with.
Yes.
But I think the issue is that we were trying to get an extra 3 square feet there because it's restricted to 20 square feet, including the logo, which I think will make those panels maybe too small. Possibly it could work on this side of the property, but on the other side, I don't know if having those small tenant panels, because you're talking about a 9-inch panel, typically that would give you, half the size of the lettering. So you're talking about a 4-inch letter for a business name as people drive by in Indian may not work.
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of still confused. So these are just 2 options that you are okay with either one of them, option A and option B, and the city will accept both?
Noriko, do you want to?
Sure.
Help me wade out of this.
Yes, that's correct. So, John, the applicant, did propose these 2 different design options. According to the language in the zoning code, the freestanding sign its primary intent is to display the building name. So the tenant names is optional. So in this case, the option A is consistent with the intent of the zoning code because it does include a building name in it.
Got it.
And then, just to address the sign area issues. So the zoning code, the way it's written is very confusing, but the code says if the signage includes a tenant name, it can actually exceed 20 square feet. And the maximum allowable sign area is going to be determined by the frontage. But if you're only gonna put the building name, the maximum square footage is permitted by this code is 20 square feet. So what's being proposed here, option A, is fine in terms of sign area. Thank you.
Thanks, Noreen.
Yeah, delete option B from your mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, in our ordinance, I think the intent is you get a 20 square foot sign to identify the complex. In the event you want to have your tenants identified on that sign, then you use the frontage formula that we talked about earlier, where you get 1 lineal square foot of sign, or 1 square foot of sign per lineal foot of frontage that you have facing the street. In this case, they do have both the complex identification name on the option A, as well as the tenant identification names on option A2. So realistically, that would mean that you're not including additional tenant names on the building. So when you look at staff's recommendation, that's why we suggested either have the freestanding signs identify the complex and not have the tenant names, or you keep the tenant names on the freestanding signs and then remove the main sign, the tenant signs from the building. So you kind of have either or option. You can have a larger sign if you don't have the main signs for tenants on the building for the freestanding sign. But in the event that you have tenant names on your freestanding sign, they shouldn't be on the building, because you get one, your formula is still the same. You get 1 square foot of sign per lineal foot of frontage. And then it just comes down to whether or not you're identifying the complex
For the tenant.
and tenants as well.
David, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the spirit of what was written there was that you don't have a proliferation of building signage, and then you get the same name on the directory. You kind of like doubling up signage. I just want to point out that every tenant name listed on this directory will not have their name on the building. This is essentially all they get, because these are dedicated for the first floor retail. So any of the common area work share spaces will not be allowed on this freestanding sign, just as a side note.
So David, if you could clarify for me, right now they're calling out 5 primary tenant signs mounted on the building. So if we were to approve option A that has the logo at the top and the tenant signs underneath it, those 5 signs would then come off of the building. Is that correct?
Well, so I think what the Mr. Cross is indicating is that each tenant name would be different due to the number of tenants that apparently occupy the space. So essentially how we determine, first, I think it's important to know how the city determines the total square footage that property is permitted. This is about a 95-foot wide building facing Palm Canyon. So the most area that we would allow is essentially 95 square feet fronting Palm Canyon, and probably the similar number backing on Indian. And so whether or not that total area is being used, I'm not sure of, but that doesn't change that, it's, typically what we allow is 1 main sign per tenant. And because this is a unique situation where you have multiple tenants occupying the same space, it seems like they're looking to get tenant signs for all of the people who work in the co-work space. And, if you think about it, historically in the city where we have office complexes, generally, we don't have a lot of individual tenant or medical office tenants identified on the building. So this is again, it's kind of a unique situation where you've got multiple people occupying a similar space or the same space. And so generally what we've seen is historically, usually it's the landlord who determines what what tenants get kind of primary identification on street frontage. And then that from there, they decide those are the signs that they get. I mean, not every tenant in a medical office or an office building typically has a sign on the exterior of the building. So it's kind of a unique situation here.
So what I would like to see and propose is that the option A that has the logo at the top with the 6 tenant signs below it would be a sign that's on Indian Avenue and on Palm Canyon. But then there's signs 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 3.1, and 3.2 that are all signs on the building would be eliminated from this signage program, because those are just repeating the tenant names and repeating the name Flannery Exchange. The blade sides would remain. And I think as far as the encroachment, the one on Palm Canyon, you can see the building to the north of it. The building is actually built over the property line. So I don't have any problem with the sign, as I know you have to go through engineering to get an encroachment permit. The one on Indian Avenue is in a planted area, and I think it could easily be moved onto the property, the 1 or 2 feet that it's encroaching, so that it would not be an encroaching sign.
I like that proposal. The best signs are the blade signs.
I agree.
Well, the odd thing about the blade signs is they don't necessarily relate to anything, to the businesses. You know, normally you'd have a blade sign and it's related to a business entrance. But here you've got, you know, maybe 3 retail spaces, depending on the restaurant, you know, facing there. I don't know. It's a very challenging building to do signage. I like the look of the blade signs, but it just doesn't make sense to me if they're not related to a building entrance, to a business entrance. And then what do you do about all the second floor businesses?
Well, I think they're talking about the second floor because it's shared workspace does not have signs. It would just be the retail, which is the orange color on the first floor, and the restaurant.
All right. Well.
And the second floor could be handled through a directory.
Yeah, because see, there's 6 orange spaces on the first floor, which I assume is how they came up with the 6 tenant signs on the.
Well, there's 6 plus, I'm assuming, plus the restaurant.
Oh, you're correct. Yep.
So the restaurant has no billing. If there are 6 retail businesses there.
Right now, it's all behind their window, and I don't know how code enforcement or anybody approaches that.
The restaurant has an allowance at 2.2, which is a building sign. That's on the curved wall.
Maybe the other way would be to allow the building signage and just a marker for the name of the building rather than that looking like a directory that the monument signs. They look like a directory to the property.
Well, they are a directory, but I think if by permitting that, we can get rid of the 4 large green signs and the 2 large orange signs that are on the building, it would certainly clean up the building, and it lets everybody have their name in the public domain somewhere.
But I think John's problem though is that there's not enough signage space on those monument signs to allow for all the tenants.
Well, he mentioned that only the tenants on the first floor would have signs. I believe, I'm not putting your words in your mouth, John. And
Yeah, I mean, I would have to have a conversation with the owner, but I can almost guarantee, because there was options provided by the city. It was either or, and that's either remove the freestanding and keep the building signage, or keep the building signage, get rid of the freestanding. And I would imagine that the tenants who occupy the work share spaces would have much more priority to signage, that the owner would want to give them an allowance over, seasonal retail pop-ups inside on the first floor. So I would imagine if it came down to, a choice between freestanding signs or building signage, I would think it would be building signage, but I need to have that conversation. Again, the building signage is very important for the tenants upstairs, to identify them. And those freestanding signs were purely just for retail first floor locations. So yeah, if you have 6 tenant spaces for the whole property, on 9-inch panels and 4-inch white vinyl lettering, I don't think that would be a easy sell, to bring tenants in. Like, we got this 3,000 square foot area for you to work in, and here's your 4-inch white vinyl lettering. I don't see that as marketable, but again, I'll have to have the conversation.
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
maybe who was had a question? Tom?
No, Mr. Chairman, my question is, I have this gut sense that this is the type of thing. Can we continue it? And I say that with an eye toward Mr. Cross being able to check in with his client. And there's a lot that has been discussed here that needs clarification from the sign ordinance standpoint, it seems. It's just going to be hard to bring this to a head.
Right. And as I look at it, maybe I'm misinterpreting the plan. If these are work loft spaces, shared work, upstairs, there's probably 30 different ones at least. Certainly
Right.
you're not expecting 30 different signs. So, some people will take just one of those cubicles, some people will take 2, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of them. And you go down to the lower floor and you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 more of them.
And
If you're
I-
trying
you
to
know,
sign up
I-
for shared
I-
workspace, you're not looking for signage.
And I kind of mean this in a constructive way. The quantity of signs and the variety of them is not serving the aesthetics of the building at all. I think it's working counter to that. So somehow this needs a better solution, more thought out, I think. Sorry.
I fully concur, John.
I like Chairman Jakeway's proposal because, again, with that proposal, it cleans the building up. There's so much going on here already. And then, it's losing the sense of even architecture with all these signs and busyness going on.
Yes, and
I think
Mr. Chair,
the building could have a character as an identification, and then these are the tenants inside.
John Walsh?
well, Mr. Chair, when you said that, I thought it was morphing itself into a motion, actually. But it's just it needs to be sorted out and revisited.
I agree with Member Walsh that it would probably be best to continue this item. Let the sign company talk with the owner and get a more clear idea of what they want to do, but they know our thoughts now for what we're hoping to see on the project.
I just want to make sure, because what the owner wants to do is clear. I just want to make sure what the direction is of the AAC. Are you guys saying to revise and show no building signage? Is that what I'm hearing, or?
That would be our preference.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Or perhaps come up with a better way to organize it.
Yeah,
So
visually.
Yeah, because right now, all these individual tenant signs running across the facades of the buildings is, as was pointed out, is a detriment to the building architecture. And if there's another way to organize it and still meet the sign guidelines, and get tenants their proper identification, I would be open to that. But currently, as it's being proposed, it's not acceptable.
And what's the, just again, so I'm clear and I can come back with something that is, what is the detriment? Is there too many signs or?
Yeah, there's too many strung along the whole front and back of the building.
What's acceptable?
A designed program by the owner of the building presenting us with a clean format of architectural, something that integrates well with the architecture.
But we're only showing sign locations. There's not a design. It's just showing locations and allowance of signage. So I just want to make sure when I don't want to revise and put 2 signs and it's not what you're expecting, what you're wanting.
Well, I think what everyone's trying to say at the moment, though, is that there's a sign slapped on every flat surface of this building at the moment. It's on every single wall. It's on every single portion of this building. We need something that's a little cleaner, and maybe that means more of a marquee type of a thing or something else. But that's what is really up to you and your client to decide on how to approach this. We're just saying that a sign slapped to every single flat surface of this building isn't acceptable.
So maybe a building ID on both sides and something with a freestanding name might be acceptable.
I don't know. I know that what's being presented isn't acceptable.
We definitely like to see the building ID and logo on that freestanding side with the tenant signs, knowing that it's going to exceed the 20 square feet.
Perfect.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Member Walsh started.
Yeah, I was going to say, John, you got the idea going.
Okay, work with me on this. Can I make a motion to continue?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, motion is made, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Cross.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the committee for getting through our agenda. Do we have any committee member comments on just things in general?
Oh, I have a comment.
Yeah.
Remember the project that we did on Monte Vista, and they had the big white monolith things? Weren't they supposed to leave the vegetation that was there? Because I went by earlier this week and everything's gone. All that ficus is cut down to the ground, the wall's gone, everything's been torn down.
Which project was this? Is this the gated community?
Las Palmas.
Las Palmas. They had those 3 big white tall, 14-foot tall monoliths that were putting into the landscaping.
That's
Well,
right.
I thought the landscaping was supposed to stay and they were adding some elements to it, but everything's gone. All the trees are gone, the wall's gone, everything's gone.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Member Thompson, I haven't, we did approve that project. It wasn't as originally or previously shown to you, but I don't recall us approving the removal of all the trees and landscape though. So we can look into that and get back to the committee on that.
Yeah, we might need to have them come to us with a landscape submittal. Any other comments? Staff, any comments? Okay, I think we're adjourned.
No, Mr. Chair, I think Director Fag has some comments for the committee.
Okay.
Yes, members of the Architectural Advisory Committee, as you may be aware, staff has been directed by City Council to look at modifications to our architectural review process, with ultimately the idea being to improve our customer service and shorten the timeframes for entitlements. As we may have discussed in the past, we've looked at reversing the order of architectural review in terms of having Planning Commission go first with AAC to follow up afterwards. And we've even done a couple of test runs on projects. There was a Starbucks on North Sunrise Way where we brought it to the Planning Commission first and then to AAC. And then on East Ramon, we also looked at a project that was taken to the Planning Commission first and then to AAC. A subcommittee has been appointed to look at the issue, including 2 members of the Planning Commission and Chair Jakeway from AAC. We are in the process of finalizing our recommendations. What we would like to do is have a discussion item on an upcoming AAC agenda to review the recommendations of the subcommittee and get your input. In looking at your calendar coming up, you've got a couple of full agendas. What we might need to do is have a special meeting of the AAC in order to have that discussion item. Looking at your March 1st agenda, we've already got 4 agenda items scheduled for that meeting. And so that may not be the time to do it. What I might propose is looking at your March 15th agenda. We don't have any items scheduled for that. However, I have a time frame to have this discussion. What I might propose is moving our March 15th meeting to March the 8th. And so your 2 meetings in March would be March the 1st and March the 8th, and then we wouldn't have any additional meetings for the rest of the month. Is that something that would work with your schedules?
Yes.
Yes, for me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, fine for me.
Okay, so I'm hearing a number of yeses. So let me do this. Let me just make sure that we can accommodate that change. We don't have any other agenda items that are expected later in March. And then I will send a meeting invite to you all with the new date so that we can have that discussion. So
And
again,
Glenn-
appreciate your
Glenn, if
flexibility.
this isn't going to be a public hearing item, is it possible that it becomes an afternoon meeting like our previous meetings instead of starting at 5:30?
Unfortunately, the city council prefers that we start at 5:30, just so if there's
Okay.
anyone who wants to participate, they can.
Okay.
So we will need to do it at 5:30. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and attempt to schedule that change for the month of March and look forward to that discussion with you. And that's really the only thing I have other than saying thanks to Chair Jakeway for sitting through all the subcommittee meetings that we've had and all your excellent suggestions. So we appreciate
Okay.
that.
Okay, so we are adjourned at 8:15. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.